All right, next we're going to focus on blood cell disorders, starting with anemia. Anemia occurs when the blood's ability to carry oxygen is reduced. So how would cells be affected by this? What is the significance of oxygen in our cells? This can usually result from too little hemoglobin, too few red blood cells, or both. Some of the symptoms include fatigue, headaches, dizziness, paleness, breathlessness, heart palpitations. There are many different types of anemia. Iron deficiency anemia, hemolytic anemia, sickle cell anemia, pernicious anemia, iron deficiency anemia, just as an example. It's the most common form. It typically leads to inadequate hemoglobin production. And the causes for it can be as simple as a diet that contains too little iron or an inability to absorb iron, or most significantly, blood loss. Significant blood loss can result in iron deficiency. If any of you have ever tried to give blood before, you'll know that one of the first things they'll do is take a small sample of your blood to determine if you're anemic in any way, or if you have any sort of iron deficiency. Not that it matters much, but I tend to be iron deficient. I've attempted to give blood about 5 times. Of those 5 times, I was turned away 3 times because I didn't have enough iron in order to give blood. I was just right on the cusp of not quite anemic, but still too low to actually donate blood. And then the other 2 times I was able to donate blood, I actually passed out. So it has not been an overwhelmingly positive experience for me, but I still try as often as I can and still encourage others to do so. It's very important to donate blood, and we'll talk about why a little bit later on. So that's iron deficiency anemia. There are other types of anemia. Hemolytic anemia occurs when red blood cell destruction exceeds production. So in other words, you're breaking down your red blood cells faster than you're producing more. Many of these causes include things like infections or defects in the membranes of the red blood cells. So if you're producing defective red blood cells, they may just be naturally breaking down. A transfusion of mismatched blood can lead your body to go into attack mode, break down those red blood cells faster than they're being given. Or sometimes hemoglobin abnormalities can cause the body to attack the red blood cells and break them down. Sickle cell anemia is an example of hemolytic anemia. It's caused by abnormal hemoglobin that causes the red blood cells to form a sickle shape when the blood's oxygen content is low. So they actually will shrivel up, change their shape, and won't be able to they'll, one, not only not be able to transport oxygen efficiently, but 2, it results in red blood cells that are fragile and they'll break easily. They can also clog small blood vessels and promote clot formation. Pernicious anemia occurs when there's an insufficient production of red blood cells. So we're just simply not making enough red blood cells. Production of red blood cells depends on vitamin B12. It's an intrinsic factor produced by the stomach lining, and it helps the small intestine there are intrinsic factors produced by the stomach lining that will help the small intestine absorb more vitamin B12 from the diet. But if we fail to produce that intrinsic factor, it makes the absorption of vitamin B12 impossible. So no matter how much vitamin B12 you take, even if you were to take supplements, your body isn't going to absorb it properly in the small intestine. There are other blood cell disorders, things like infectious mononucleosis, or mono. This is a viral disease of the lymphocytes. It's caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. It's spread person to person by oral contact. Symptoms include fever, headache, sore throat, swollen lymph nodes, and there's no treatment. You're just going to have to ride this one out if you come down with mono. It is because it is a viral infection. The only thing you can do is heal the body, treat the body. If you're fatigued, rest. If you have a headache, treat the headache. All you can do is really treat the symptoms and give the body its best fighting chance to defeat the virus. Leukemia is also a blood cell disorder. It's caused by a cancer of the white blood cells. It'll cause the number of white blood cells to greatly increase. So we're going to see a huge uptick in white blood cells. Unfortunately, these abnormal cells can take over the bone marrow, preventing the development of other formed elements. So yes, we have lots of white blood cells, but we're forming very little other formed elements. Symptoms can include anemia, inadequate clotting, and body defense mechanisms. Treatment typically involves radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and transfusions. Bone marrow transplants can help if the issue is If the issue is faulty bone marrow, potentially you can replace it with healthy bone marrow that is producing correct white blood cells. And that's it for this chapter. You should be able to list the functions of blood, describe the composition of blood and the function of platelets, red blood cells and white blood cells, and explain the cause and treatments of various anemias and leukemia. All right, thank you. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns.